The lab was a tomb of secrets, its sterile walls pulsing with the hum of machines that could rewrite the world or end it. I stood frozen, my heart hammering, as the man I'd idolized for years turned to face me, his silhouette framed by the glow of a monitor. In that moment, I didn't know I'd kiss him tonight or that he'd become the enemy I'd sworn to destroy. My name is Eli Carter, a 25-year-old hacker with a knack for breaking into systems that governments and corporations pray I'll never touch. I grew up in the gritty underbelly of Chicago, where dreams were as scarce as clean water. But I had one obsession, Dr. Julian Hayes, the 27-year-old prodigy whose research on neural interfaces promised to cure diseases or control minds, depending on who you asked. His TED Talks were my gospel, his sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes a distraction I couldn't afford. I'd spent years tracking his work, not just because I admired him, but because I believed he was the key to exposing the truth about Nextech, the biotech giant funding his lab. Nextech's headquarters loomed over Chicago like a glass monolith, its labs buried deep underground. Rumors swirled about their experiments: mind control, behavioral manipulation, tech that could strip away free will. My hacker collective, ShadowNet, had been digging for years, but we needed proof. That's why I was here, sneaking into Julian's lab at 2 a.m. My hoodie pulled tight, my laptop slung over my shoulder. The air smelled of ozone and antiseptic, and every step echoed like a warning. I'd hacked the security system to get in, bypassing cameras and keycard locks with code I'd written in a caffeine-fueled haze. ShadowNet had tipped me off Julian's latest project, codenamed Elysium, was the smoking gun. If I could download its data, we'd have enough to blow Nextech wide open. But as I crept through the lab, past humming servers and glowing vials, I felt a shiver of doubt. What if Julian wasn't the hero I'd imagined? What if he was complicit? The lab was a maze of glass and steel, each corner hiding equipment I could barely name. Neural scanners, quantum processors, things that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi flick. I found Julian's workstation, its screen still active, displaying streams of code I recognized: elegant, efficient, unmistakably his. My fingers flew over the keyboard, plugging in my drive to siphon the Elysium files. That's when I heard it, a soft click behind me. Eli Carter, a voice said, smooth and sharp as a blade. I spun around, my pulse spiking. Julian Hayes stood in the doorway, his lab coat pristine, his blonde hair catching the neon light. He was taller than I'd expected, his presence filling the room like gravity. I've been expecting you. My mouth went dry. You know me, I stammered, my hand hovering over the drive. I'd covered my trackshand eye. I know your code, he said, stepping closer. His eyes locked onto mine, unreadable but intense. ShadowNet's best hacker. You've been poking around my systems for months. He tilted his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. I'm impressed. I should have bolted. Every instinct screamed to run, to pull the drive and disappear into the night. But I was rooted to the spot, caught in the pull of his gaze. Julian Hayes, the man I'd studied like a religion, was standing 3 feet away, talking to me like we were equals. My hero worship battled my suspicion, and for a moment, I forgot why I was here. Why didn't you turn me in? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He shrugged, casual but deliberate. Maybe I wanted to meet the guy who's been outsmarting my security. Or maybe, he paused, his eyes softening. Maybe I think you're looking for the same truth I am. My heart lurched. Was he playing me? Or was this the Julian I'd idolized, the one who wanted to change the world, not control it? Before I could respond, an alarm blared, red lights flashing across the lab. Security breach. My hack hadn't been as clean as I'd thought. "Time's up," Julian said, grabbing my wrist. His touch sent a jolt through me. Equal parts fear and something I didn't want to name. "Come with me if you want to get out alive." I yanked my drive from the port and followed him, my mind racing. We sprinted through the lab, dodging sensors and ducking into a service corridor. His hand never left mine, his grip firm but not bruising. In the chaos, I caught glimpses of him, his jaw clenched, his focus razor sharp. This wasn't the polished genius from the TED stage. This was someone who knew how to survive. We reached a maintenance hatch, and he shoved it open, revealing a dark tunnel. "Go," he hissed. I hesitated, searching his face for a lie. All I saw was urgency and something deeper, something that made my chest tighten. "Why are you helping me?" I demanded, my voice echoing in the tunnel. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "Because I'm not who you think I am, Eli. And neither are you." Before I could process his words, he pushed me into the tunnel, slamming the hatch behind us. The darkness swallowed us whole. And in that moment, I knew I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. Julian Hayes wasn't just my idol, he was a puzzle I had to solve, even if it destroyed us both. The tunnel was a claustrophobic vein of concrete and rust, its air thick with the scent of damp earth and old metal. Julian's hand was still on my wrist, guiding me through the dark as our footsteps echoed like gunfire. My mind spun with questions, each one sharper than the last. Why was he helping me? What did he mean? "I'm not who you think I am." "Keep moving," Julian whispered, his voice low but steady. The alarms were fainter now, muffled by layers of earth. But I knew Nextech's security wouldn't stop. They'd hunt us like dogs. I clutched my laptop bag, the Elysium files burning a hole in my conscience. If I'd grabbed enough data, ShadowNet could expose Nextech's sins. If not, this whole night was a death sentence. We emerged into an abandoned subway platform, its tiles cracked and covered in graffiti. The dim flicker of a broken fluorescent light cast shadows across Julian's face, making his sharp features look almost otherworldly. He released my wrist, and I felt the absence of his touch like a phantom limb. "Where are we?" I asked, my breath ragged. "Somewhere Nextech won't find us," he said, scanning the platform. "Not yet. Anyway." He turned to me, his blue eyes catching the light like fractured glass. "You've got questions? Ask them now, because we don't have much time." I didn't know where to start. "Why help me? If you're with Nextech, you should have turned me in." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "With Nextech, Eli, I'm their prisoner as much as their prodigy. They fund my work, but they control every move I make. Elysium isn't what you think. It's not just a neural interface. It's a weapon." My stomach dropped. I'd suspected as much, but hearing it from him was like a punch to the gut. A weapon for what? "Control," he said, his voice heavy with disgust. "Nextech wants to implant chips that can manipulate thoughts, emotions, decisions. They're testing it on vulnerable populations, homeless people, addicts, anyone they can disappear without questions. I've been trying to sabotage it from the inside, but I'm running out of time." I stared at him, my hero worship crumbling like ash. Julian wasn't the untouchable genius I'd imagined. He was a man caught in a web, just like me. But I couldn't trust him. Not yet. "Why should I believe you?" I asked. "You could be playing me to save your own skin." His jaw tightened, but his eyes didn't waver. "You don't have to believe me. But you've seen my code. You know I could have locked you out months ago. I let you in. Eli, I wanted you to find me." His words hit harder than they should have. I'd spent years idolizing him from afar, analyzing his work, dreaming of the day I'd meet him. Now here he was, flesh and blood, and I didn't know if he was my ally or my downfall. Before I could respond, a distant clang echoed through the tunnel. Footsteps. Heavy ones. They're coming, Julian said, grabbing my arm again. We ran, ducking into a service alcove just as flashlights swept the platform. Nextech's security team moved like predators, their radios crackling with static. I pressed against the wall, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they'd hear it. Julian was too close. His shoulder brushed mine, and I could feel the heat of his body, the faint scent of his cologne mixing with the musty air. My mind screamed to focus, but my body betrayed me, hyper-aware of every inch between us. This wasn't the time for feelings, not when we were one wrong move from capture. But God, I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe the man I'd idolized was still worth saving. Stay quiet, he whispered, his lips brushing my ear. My breath hitched, and for a split second, our eyes locked. There was something raw in his gaze, something that mirrored the chaos in my chest. Then the moment broke, and he pulled me deeper into the shadows. We waited, barely breathing, as the guards passed. When their footsteps faded, Julian exhaled, his shoulders sagging. We need to move, he said. There's a safe house in Pilsen. ShadowNet uses it. Right. I nodded, stunned he knew about it. How do you? I've been watching you, too, he admitted, his voice softer now. Your hacks, your posts on ShadowNet's forums. You're brilliant, Eli. And you're reckless. That's why I knew you'd come for Elysium. I didn't know whether to be flattered or terrified. He knew more about me than I'd ever imagined. And yet I still didn't know him. Not really. We slipped out of the alcove and headed for the safe house, moving through Chicago's underbelly like ghosts. The city above was alive with neon and noise. But down here, it was just us. Two men running from a truth neither of us fully understood. The safe house was a crumbling apartment above a laundromat, its windows boarded up and its walls lined with servers. ShadowNet's tech was scattered across the room: monitors, cables, half-empty energy drink cans. I plugged in my drive, my hands shaking as I opened the Elysium files. Lines of code filled the screen, complex and hauntingly beautiful. Julian stood behind me, his presence a quiet weight. What am I looking at? I asked, scrolling through the data. The blueprint for Elysium, he said. It's a neural chip, but it's not just about curing diseases. Nextech has been testing it on people without consent. They're turning humans into puppets. Eli. And I'm the one who built it. His voice cracked on the last word, and I turned to face him. For the first time, I saw the guilt in his eyes, the weight of a man who'd created something monstrous. I wanted to hate him, to blame him for everything I'd risked. But all I could think about was the way his hand had felt on mine, the way he'd risked his life to save me. We can stop this, I said, my voice firm. Together. He looked at me, and for a moment, the world fell away. Then he nodded, and we turned back to the screen, ready to tear Nextech apart one line of code at a time. The safe house was a fortress of chaos, its air thick with the buzz of servers and the faint smell of burnt coffee. Julian and I hunched over the monitor, the Elysium files casting a cold glow across our faces. Every line of code was a confession, a map to Nextech's crimes and Julian's complicity. I wanted to trust him, but doubt gnawed at me like a splinter. You built this, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. You knew what they were doing. Julian's jaw clenched, but he didn't look away. I didn't know at first. They sold me on the dream curing Alzheimer's, restoring memories. By the time I saw the truth, I was in too deep, leaving Mint abandoning the people they're testing on. I scrolled through the data, my stomach churning. The files detailed human trials names, ages, medical histories, people who'd vanished from Chicago's streets, their minds hijacked by Elysium's chips. How many? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Hundreds, he said, his eyes haunted. Maybe more. I've been stalling, feeding Nextech fake results to buy time. But they're close to deployment. If we don't act now, they'll roll this out globally. I slammed my fist on the table, the sound echoing in the cramped room. Why didn't you go public? You're Julian Hayes. People would have listened. He laughed, a hollow sound, and risked their lives. Nextech doesn't just sue whistleblowers to erase them. I needed someone like you, someone outside their reach. His words hung between us, heavy with implication. I'd spent years idolizing him, but now I saw the cracks in his armor, the guilt, the fear, the desperate hope that I could help him fix this. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not yet. We worked through the night, decoding Elysium's architecture. Julian's expertise was staggering. He navigated the code like a composer reading a symphony. I matched him step for step, my hacker instincts kicking in. Together, we uncovered the chip's core function, a neural override that could plant thoughts, suppress memories, even force obedience. It was terrifying and brilliant. You wrote this, I said, half in awe, half in horror. I did, he admitted, his voice low, and I hate myself for it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man behind the myth. Not the untouchable genius, but someone fighting a war he couldn't win alone. My anger softened, replaced by something I wasn't ready to name. I reached out, my hand brushing his. He didn't pull away. We'll destroy it, I said. All of it. He nodded, his fingers curling around mine for a fleeting moment. We will. But we need more than code. We need evidence, something undeniable. I pulled up ShadowNet's secure channel and sent a message to my contact, Mara, a journalist with a knack for exposing corporate corruption. Meet us at the safe house. I typed. We've got something big. As we waited, Julian told me about his life before Nextech. He'd grown up in a small town in Ohio, the only openly gay kid in a place that didn't take kindly to difference. Science had been his escape, his way of proving he was more than the slurs hurled at him. I saw myself in his stormy own childhood in Chicago's roughest neighborhoods, where being by meant hiding half of who I was. You never gave up, I said, my voice soft, even when it hurt. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, the world shrank to just us. Neither did you, he said. That's why I trust you. The moment was shattered by a knock at the door. Mara slipped inside, her camera bag slung over her shoulder. She was all business, her sharp eyes scanning the room. This better be worth it. Eli, I'm risking my neck. I showed her the files, walking her through the evidence. Her face paled as she read, her fingers tightening around her notebook. This is bigger than Watergate, she whispered. We need to move fast. But before we could plan, the safe house's security feed flickered. Cameras outside showed armed figures closing Nextech's private security. They'd found us. Get the drive, Julian snapped, grabbing a USB from the table. I yanked it from my laptop, my heart racing. Mara stuffed her notes into her bag, her face grim. We can't outrun them, I said, panic creeping in. Julian grabbed my hand, his grip steady. Then we fight. For everyone they've hurt. We barricaded the door, but the pounding started seconds later. Julian's eyes locked onto mine, And in that chaos, something shifted. I didn't just want to survive, I wanted to protect him. To protect us. Without thinking, I leaned in and kissed him, hard and desperate, tasting the fear and hope between us. He kissed me back, his hands framing my face. And for one fleeting moment, the world made sense. Then the door splintered, and reality crashed back in. The door exploded inward, wood shards flying like shrapnel. Julian yanked me behind a server rack, his hand still gripping mine as Nextech's guards stormed the safe house. Their boots thudded against the floor, their voices sharp with commands. Mara crouched beside us, her camera clutched like a lifeline. "Stay low," Julian whispered, his breath warm against my cheek. My lips still tingled from our kiss. A reckless moment that felt like a promise we might not keep. I clutched the USB drive, the weight of Elysium's secrets heavy in my palm. The guards swept the room, their flashlights cutting through the dim light. I peered through a gap in the rack, counting 3 of them armored, moving with military precision. My heart pounded, but Julian's steady presence kept me grounded. He wasn't just the prodigy I'd idolized. He was a fighter, and I'd fight beside him. "We need a distraction," Mara hissed, her eyes darting to the servers. "Can you hack their comms?" I nodded, pulling my laptop from my bag. My fingers flew over the keys, tapping into the guard's radio frequency. ShadowNet had taught me how to disrupt signals, and I sent a burst of static through their earpieces, enough to disorient them. They cursed, fumbling with their radios, and Julian seized the moment. "Move," he whispered, pulling me toward a back exit. Mara followed, her camera recording everything. We slipped into a narrow hallway, the air thick with dust and desperation. The guard's shouts echoed behind us, but we didn't stop. Julian led us to a fire escape, its rusted ladder creaking under our weight as we climbed to the roof. Chicago's skyline stretched before us, a jagged sea of lights under a starless sky. The wind whipped at my hoodie, and I shivered, not from cold, but from the weight of what we were up against. Nextech wasn't just a company, it was a machine, and we were ants in its path. "We can't keep running," I said, my voice raw. "They'll find us." Julian's eyes met mine, fierce and unyielding. "Then we take the fight to them. We leak the files, expose Elysium, and burn Nextech to the ground." Mara nodded, already uploading footage to a secure server. "I've got contacts at major outlets. If we get this out, they won't be able to bury it." "But doubt not at me. They'll discredit us, paint us as terrorists." Julian's hand found mine, his touch steadying. "Let them try. The truth is on our side." We descended the fire escape, slipping into an alley where Mara's van waited. She drove, weaving through Chicago's streets as Julian and I pored over the files in the back. The data was damning: test subject logs, video footage of experiments, emails between Nextech execs. But one file caught my eye, a memo signed by Julian, approving a new phase of trials. I froze, my blood running cold. "You signed this," I said, turning the laptop toward him. "You authorized more tests." His face paled, guilt etched in every line. "I had to. They were watching me. Eli, if I didn't play along, they'd have killed me or worse." The test subjects. I wanted to believe him, but the betrayal stung. "How do I know you're not still playing me?" He grabbed my shoulders, his eyes blazing. "Because I'm here, risking everything with you. Because he stopped, his voice breaking. "Because I care about you, Eli, more than I should." My heart stuttered. The kiss in the safe house hadn't been a fluke, it was real. And so was this. But before I could respond, Mara slammed on the brakes. We've got company. A black SUV blocked the road, its headlights blinding. Guards poured out, weapons raised. Julian pushed me down, shielding me as bullets shattered the van's windshield. Mara screamed, diving for cover. My world narrowed to the chaos gunfire. Glass. Julian's body pressed against mine. Stay with me, he whispered, his voice fierce. I nodded, clutching the drive. We weren't just fighting for ourselves anymore. We were fighting for every person Next-Tech had broken. Mara floored the gas, swerving past the SUV. The van lurched, tires screeching, as we sped toward the city's edge. Julian's hand stayed on mine, a lifeline in the storm. I didn't know if I could trust him, but I knew I couldn't let him go. We ditched the van in an abandoned lot, slipping into a warehouse shadow net used as a backup. Inside, we regrouped, our breaths ragged. Mara uploaded the last of her footage, her hands shaking. This goes live tonight, she said. No matter what. Julian and I worked to encrypt the files, preparing them for ShadowNet's network. As we worked, our shoulders brushed, and I felt that pull again, the one that had led to our kiss. But now wasn't the time. Next-Tech was closing in, and we were running out of places to hide. The warehouse was a skeleton of steel and shadows, its air heavy with the scent of oil and rust. Julian and I sat side by side, our laptops casting pale light across the concrete floor. Mara paced nearby, her phone buzzing with messages from her contacts. The Elysium files were ready to leak, but every second felt like a countdown to disaster. I glanced at Julian, his face taut with focus. The memo I'd found still haunted me, a crack in the trust one wanted to build. You should have told me, I said quietly, my eyes on the screen. About the trials. About everything. He sighed, running a hand through his blonde hair. I wanted to, but I was afraid you'd see me as the enemy. I'm not proud of what I've done, Eli. I've spent years trying to undo it. His honesty disarmed me. I saw the weight he carried, the guilt that mirrored my own doubts. I don't know how to trust you, I admitted, but I want to. He turned to me, his blue eyes searching mine. Then let me prove it. Not with words, but with what we do next. Before I could respond, Mara's phone pinged. It's done, she said, her voice trembling with excitement. The files are live. Every major outlet's got them: CNN, The Times, even international networks. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. The warehouse's security feed flickered, showing SUVs surrounding the building. Next-Tech had found us again. My heart sank. They're not giving up. Julian grabbed my hand, his grip fierce. Neither are we. We scrambled to pack our gear, but the doors burst open before we could move. Guards flooded in, their weapons trained on us. A man in a tailored suit stepped forward, his smile cold as ice. Dr. Hayes, he said, his voice dripping with menace. You've been busy. Julian stood, shielding me and Mara. It's over. Caldwell. The world knows what Next-Tech has done. Caldwell, Next-Tech's head of security, laughed. You think a few leaks will stop us? We own the narrative. You're just a disgruntled employee, and your hacker friend is a terrorist. I clenched my fists, rage boiling over. We've got proof. You can't bury this. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. Proof can disappear. So can people. Before I could react, Julian lunged at Caldwell, tackling him to the ground. The guards hesitated, caught off guard. Run, Julian shouted, wrestling with Caldwell. I grabbed Mara's arm, pulling her toward a side exit. But I couldn't leave Julian. I turned back, my heart pounding, and saw him pinned by a guard. Without thinking, I charged, slamming my laptop into the guard's head. He crumpled, and Julian scrambled to his feet, blood trickling from a cut on his lip. "Thanks," he panted, grabbing my hand. We ran, Mara leading the way to a loading dock. We slipped into the night, the sound of pursuit close behind. We hid in a storm drain, the cold concrete biting into my skin. Julian's breath was ragged, his face pale in the dim light. "You came back for me," he said, his voice soft. "Of course I did," I replied, my throat tight. "I'm not losing you." He smiled, a small, broken thing, and leaned in. Our lips met again, softer this time, but no less urgent. The kiss was a promise, a vow to keep fighting, no matter the cost. Mara cleared her throat, breaking the moment. "We need a plan. The leaks are out, but Next Tech will spin this. We need to hit them where it hurts." Julian nodded, his expression grim. "Their main server. It's in their headquarters. If we can take it down, we can cripple their operations." I stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. "That's a suicide mission." "Maybe," he said, his eyes locked on mine. "But it's our only shot." We spent the next hours planning, using ShadowNet's network to coordinate with other hackers. Mara reached out to her contacts, ensuring the leaks spread like wildfire. Julian and I worked side by side, our hands brushing as we typed. Every touch was a reminder of what we were fighting for, not just justice, but each other. As dawn broke, we had a plan: infiltrate Nextech's headquarters, hack their server, and destroy Elysium's infrastructure. It was risky, but we had no choice. The world was watching, and we couldn't fail. The plan was insane, but it was ours. Nextech's headquarters loomed like a fortress, its glass facade hiding a labyrinth of secrets. Julian, Mara, and I crouched in an alley across the street, our breath visible in the cold Chicago dawn. My laptop was open, connected to ShadowNet's network, ready to breach the server once we were inside. Julian's hand brushed mine, a quiet anchor in the storm. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice low. "You can walk away." I shook my head, my resolve steel. "I'm in. For you. For them." I thought of the test subjects, their lives stolen by Elysium's chips. This wasn't just about us anymore. Mara checked her camera, her face set. "Let's make history." We moved like shadows, slipping through a service entrance I'd hacked earlier. The building was a maze of sterile corridors and locked doors. But Julian knew the layout. He led us to the server room, his steps silent but sure. My heart raced, every sound amplified in the silence. The server room was a cathedral of technology, its humming machines the heart of Nextech's empire. I plugged in my laptop, my fingers trembling as I bypassed firewalls. Julian stood watch, his eyes scanning the door. Mara filmed, capturing every moment for the world to see. "We're in," I whispered, the server's interface opening before me. The Elysium system was massive, a digital hydra with layers of encryption. But I was ShadowNet's best, and Julian's code was my map. Together, we tore through it, planting a virus that would erase Elysium's core. Halfway through, the door burst open. Caldwell stood there, flanked by guards. "You're persistent," he sneered. "But this ends now." Julian stepped forward, his voice steady. "It's already over. The world knows." Caldwell laughed, raising his gun. "The world forgets." I didn't think I acted. I yanked a server cable, sparking a power surge that plunged the room into darkness. Chaos erupted. Guards shouting. Mara diving for cover. Julian grabbed my hand, pulling me behind a rack. In the dark, his lips found mine. A desperate kiss that tasted of fear and defiance. Finish it, he whispered, his voice fierce. I nodded, crawling to my laptop. The virus was still uploading, seconds ticking by like hours. Gunfire echoed, and I heard Julian grunt in pain. My heart stopped, but I kept typing, the screen my only focus. The upload finished, and Elysium's system began to collapse, data shredding into nothingness. Light flooded the room as backup power kicked in. Julian was on the floor, clutching his side, blood seeping through his fingers. No, I screamed, rushing to him. I'm okay, he gasped, his face pale. Get Mara. Go. I helped him up, my arm around his waist. Mara was already at the door, her camera still rolling. We stumbled into the corridor, guards close behind. The building's alarms blared, a symphony of chaos. We reached the lobby, where ShadowNet hackers had staged a distraction, smoke bombs and drones, turning the entrance into a war zone. We slipped outside, blending into the crowd. Mara's footage was already streaming, the world watching Nextech's empire burn. Julian leaned against me, his breath shallow. We did it, he whispered. Not yet, I said, my voice fierce. You're not dying on me. We made it to a safe house, where a ShadowNet medic patched Julian up. He'd live, but the wound was a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything. As he rested, I sat beside him, my hand in his. The world was changing outside, but in that moment, it was just us. Julian slept, his chest rising and falling under the dim light of the safe house. The medic had stabilized him, but the sight of his blood-soaked shirt still haunted me. I sat by his side, my laptop open, monitoring the fallout. Mara's footage had gone viral, and Nextech's stock was plummeting. Protests erupted outside their headquarters, the world demanding justice. But I couldn't shake the fear that it wasn't enough. Nextech was wounded, not dead. Caldwell was still out there, and he'd come for us. I looked at Julian, his face peaceful despite the pain, and felt a surge of protectiveness. I'd kissed him in the dark lab, not knowing he was the enemy I'd sworn to destroy. Now, I knew he was the man I'd fight to save. Mara burst in, her eyes wide. Feds are raiding Nextech. Our leaks worked. They're arresting execs, seizing servers. Relief hit me like a wave, but it was tempered by caution. Caldwell, I asked. She shook her head, still in the wind. We need to stay low. Julian stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Eli, he murmured, his voice weak. Did we win? I squeezed his hand, my throat tight. We're getting there. He smiled, faint but real. You kissed me back there, in the server room. Heat flooded my face. Yeah, I did. He reached up, brushing my cheek. Do it again. I leaned in, our lips meeting softly. It wasn't the desperate kiss of the lab or the warehousey, it was slow, deliberate, a promise of something more. When we pulled apart, his eyes held mine, and I saw the future we could have, if we survived. Mara cleared her throat, smirking. Get a room. You too. We've got work to do. She was right. Nextech's collapse was only the beginning. We needed to ensure the test subjects were freed, their stories told. ShadowNet was already tracking them, coordinating with activists and lawyers. Julian and I dove back into the data, identifying victims and linking them to medical support. As we worked, Julian opened up about his past. He joined Nextech to make a difference. But their promises had turned to threats. He'd stayed to protect the test subjects, feeding Nextech false data to slow their progress. His courage floored me, and I realized how much I'd misjudged him. "You're not the enemy," I said, my voice firm. "You never were." He looked at me, his eyes soft. "And you're not just a hacker. You're the reason we're winning." The safe house buzzed with activity as ShadowNet members arrived, bringing news of arrests and lawsuits. But Caldwell's absence loomed large. Late that night, a message pinged on my laptop, an encrypted file from an unknown source. I opened it, my blood running cold. It was a video of Caldwell, his face twisted with rage. "You think you've won," he sneered. "Elysium's backups are safe, and I'm coming for you." Julian's hand tightened around mine. "He's bluffing," he said, but his voice wavered. I shook my head. "He's not. We need to find those backups." We spent the night planning, our resolve unbroken. Julian's strength, even wounded, inspired me. We were more than allies now, we were partners, bound by a kiss and a cause. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, I believed we could win. The safe house was a hive of tension. ShadowNet hackers working around the clock to trace Caldwell's backups. Julian was stronger now, his wound healing, but the fire in his eyes burned brighter than ever. We sat together, our laptops side by side, chasing leads through dark web forums and encrypted servers. Every dead end felt like a noose tightening. But we didn't stop. Caldwell's video played on a loop in my mind, his threat a shadow over our victory. The world was turning against Nextech. But if Elysium's backups existed, everything we'd fought for could unravel. I looked at Julian, his face lit by the screen, and felt a surge of determination. We'd come too far to lose now. ShadowNet's network pinged with a Lita server farm in rural Illinois, linked to Nextech's offshore accounts. "That's it," Julian said, his voice steady. "Caldwell's hiding there." We mobilized, a small team of hackers and activists, with Mara leading the charge. The drive to the server farm was silent, the weight of our mission heavy. Julian's hand rested on mine, a quiet reminder of what we were fighting for. Not just justice, but a future where we could be together, free from Nextech's shadow. The server farm was a fortress of steel and concrete, its perimeter lined with cameras and guards. We split up, Mara and the others creating a diversion while Julian and I infiltrated the main building. My heart pounded as we slipped past security, my laptop ready to deliver the final blow. Inside, the air was cold, the hum of servers deafening. We found the mainframe, its drives glowing with Elysium's data. I plugged in, my virus ready to wipe it clean. But before I could start, Caldwell's voice echoed behind us. "You're predictable, Carter," he said, stepping from the shadows, gun in hand. "And you, Hayes. I should have killed you years ago." Julian stepped in front of me, his voice calm. "It's over, Caldwell. The world knows." Caldwell laughed, his eyes wild. "The world doesn't care. Power wins." I didn't wait. I hit the upload, the virus tearing through the mainframe. Caldwell lunged, but Julian tackled him, the two grappling as servers sparked and died. I finished the upload, watching Elysium's backups dissolve into code. Julian pinned Caldwell, his strength defying his injury. "You're done," he growled. Guards burst in, but Mara's team was ready, neutralizing them with tasers and zip ties. Caldwell was restrained, his empire crumbling with the servers. We stood together, Julian's arm around me, as the last of Elysium vanished. Weeks later, Nextech was dismantled, its execs facing trials. The test subjects were freed, their stories fueling a global reckoning. Julian and I stood on a Chicago rooftop, the city glittering below. He took my hand, his smile soft. "We did it," he said. I kissed him, the wind carrying our hope. "Yeah," I whispered, "and we're just getting started." The world wasn't perfect, but it was ours to rebuild. Together, we'd exposed the truth, found love in the dark, and fought for a future where no one's mind could be stolen. In the lab's shadows, I'd kissed my idol and discovered he was the partner I'd always needed.